Hi, my name is Alena Denisova, and this video will provide an overview of our paper about playtesting challenges faced by indie video game developers. Most video games today are created by indie or independent video game developers. These are small studios or solo creators who produce innovative and often commercially successful games without the backing of major publishers. Due to the scale of their operations, these developers typically have limited resources and often juggle multiple roles, which makes it difficult to specialize in every aspect of game creation. Despite these limitations, indie developers aim for similar quality standards as larger studios who often have bigger budgets and more diverse expertise. One important requirement is creating a positive user experience, which can be achieved through playtesting that helps to ensure that games deliver the intended experiences to players. This is typically done by setting research objectives and using insights from players' opinions and behavior to make necessary adjustments. This playtesting process is largely based on the studies of good practices of larger companies, which have received a lot more attention from researchers, and they are therefore better understood than those of indie developers who face unique challenges due to their limited resources and different scales of development and production. As a result of this, they may also have different needs and use different approaches to conducting playtesting, which we currently know very little about. This playtesting process is also fairly complex, expensive, and requires specialized skills in order to collect and use player feedback effectively. While large companies can afford dedicated user research teams or hire external agencies for that, indie developers typically do not have the budgets for it. Instead, they have to rely on themselves or team members without extensive research experience for this important task, or skip the process altogether. And so there is a need to empower indie developers with tools and knowledge to conduct effective playtesting within these constraints. This would ultimately lead to more accessible and impactful gaming experiences, supporting innovation and risk-taking in industry. This diversity is also necessary to cater to a wide range of players' abilities and preferences, keeping the gaming community inclusive. To take this first step towards this objective, we first need to understand the research methods and processes used by indie developers for playtesting, and to explore what they find challenging about playtesting currently. For this, we interviewed 13 indie game professionals who were involved in the playtesting of video games developed by themselves or by the independent studios they're part of. All interviewees have worked on several published titles and held various roles. We interviewed developers from small to medium-sized studios located in different parts of the world, asking about their playtesting practices and specific hurdles that they encounter. Using inductive thematic analysis, we identified 5 core themes around the challenges that they faced. These themes are covered in detail in our paper, and in the video we will focus on some of the key findings from this work. One major challenge in playtesting that we identified was finding the right participants who can provide honest and relevant feedback representative of the target audience. Unlike larger companies with established networks of financially incentivized playtesters, indie developers noted their limited technology and resources, which resulted in inconsistent or lower participation in playtesting. This limitation also affected the methods that they used, as playtesters were less likely to record their screens and participate in long-term playtests. Confidentiality imposed by non-disclosure agreements or NDAs also meant that their recruitment decisions were often based on trust, encouraging them to use panels of trusted players even when new players would have been more appropriate. Another challenge was around setting up playtests to collect useful insights for the team, especially regarding writing survey questions and NDA paperwork. Gathering unbiased feedback requires experience, specialized knowledge, and resources in order to set up clear research objectives and choose appropriate research methods to address these. Our participants voiced that it was difficult to know how to design playtests that do not influence their players, and ask for feedback that comes out naturally. To learn more about this, our interviewees participated in other studios' playtesting sessions. This approach, however, doesn't necessarily convey the reasoning behind specific research methods that are being used or the questions that are being asked. This could therefore lead to less focused studies that fail to address the most pressing development decisions that indie developers face. This issue can be amplified when playtesting unique experiences that have not been documented previously or seen being tested elsewhere. Indie games often feature powerful stories and innovative mechanics not found in the mainstream titles, and so there is a need for tailored approaches to effectively evaluate such interactions. Technical challenges in data collection, both online and in person, were also prominent. Without a dedicated physical space for playtests, most were conducted remotely and at events. This can in turn affect the choice of research methods being used and compromise the validity of the findings to some extent. Setting up remote sessions that produce useful data could be particularly technically challenging. For instance, our interviewees noted the challenges around distributing the build to the players and ensuring that it actually works on their equipment. This also required some level of confidence in players' technical understanding to be able to record their screens and then send it back to the developers. Similarly, analyzing the collected data can be overwhelming without the right tools and expertise. Without a clear plan for what data to collect and how to collect it, developers may run into an issue of gathering large amounts of superfluous data. Then separating useful insights from noise was described as difficult and time-consuming, as it took up resources that could be spent elsewhere. Efficiently identifying important conclusions in an unbiased manner was also seen as a challenge within a time-sensitive environment. When the data analysis is complete, the key insights are typically compiled into a report. In larger companies, the responsibility of deciding which tasks to prioritize and what changes to implement falls to senior management, but for smaller developers, the task is either handled individually or is decided collaboratively within the team. Our interviewees noted that prioritizing tasks was challenging due to the lack of clear plans for handling feedback. Additionally, there was often a lack of prior evidence that acting on feedback would yield significant impact on the game reception or the play experience. The challenges were identified and surprisingly stem from the limited expertise with regards to conducting user research, funding, and time that the developers have. Existing solutions for streamlining some aspects of playtesting mostly cater to larger studios. Our paper offers several suggestions to support indie developers specifically based on the identified challenges. One example would be exploring new tools and research methods tailored to unique and novel gaming experiences, which would require working closely with the developers to better understand their goals and how to best align existing tools and create new ones to capture and analyze nuanced feedback. Creating something akin to a recommender system or a framework that would help novice researchers create effective playtesting plans and identify appropriate tools for collecting and analyzing the data would be also useful. Recognizing constraints as potential drivers of innovation, indie developers may have devised innovative approaches that hold promise for broad adoption in industry, presenting interesting avenues for academic researchers to explore in more depth. The long-term goal is then to advance games user research through learning about these approaches to determine best practices for this community. This work serves as the first step towards exploring specific processes that indie developers follow when playtesting their games and identifying possible challenges that arise during this process. The hope is to expand this work into a larger-scale survey of practices and challenges of a wider demographic of developers to potentially capture some of the lesser-known or used approaches. Future work could also consider how these indie practices compare to the established practices from larger studios. Ultimately, we call for the community efforts to focus on co-created, innovative technological and methodological solutions to help address some of the specific challenges and assess their practicality and effectiveness in specific contexts. This could offer an opportunity for longer-term involvement for both parties, addressing the need to create better relationships and dialogue between academics and indie game developers doing playtesting.